Welcome back to the Other Life podcast. Today, we are continuing in my new series, which I am now dedicating exclusively to lesser known figures in the weirdest depths of internet subcultures, interesting, strange creators or artists or bloggers who are uh, perhaps not known to anyone. The problem with growing a podcast is you have a natural tendency to, as you grow, you want to get kind of more and more famous or influential people, and that's very fun and cool. And I'm happy to see my podcast attracting kind of more famous people. But the roots of my podcast are essentially in random, weird, strange pockets of the internet, and I really want to maintain that. I want to stay true to my roots. So what I'm now doing is I'm basically just creating a separate series that will go on the same podcast, the Other Life podcast. It'll be shorter chats with people who, for any reason whatsoever, I might have some sort of vague random interest in, or they seem interesting or cool, or perhaps I just catch a glimpse of something they say on the internet somewhere, and I'm just kind of curious, and I just want to kind of poke under the hood a little bit. I might not want to spend 2 hours doing that with like any random person or lesser known people, but by having short chats at about 30 minutes pop, I can do more of those and have on people who I might not otherwise have on. So, all right, I see Luke in the background now. He has arrived. He's in the wings. Luke, just hang tight. We are live now. I'm just warming up the crowd. So you just chill for 1 minute. I'll introduce you. Today, we are going to be joined by a one Luke Ford, who is a moderator of Freud's Dank meme stash and has his finger in a whole bunch of other interesting internet pies. And yeah, I actually met Luke in person. I had the good fortune of seeing him in Florida when I had one of my meetups that I did recently. I've only done a few meetups. I've experimented with this, and I'm happy to say that they've all gone quite well. I've met many really cool people, such as Luke, and I guess we've stayed in touch since then. And now I'm bringing him on because he's very active in different pockets of the internet, which I'm very intrigued by. And I think he's going to be able to turn us on to some interesting, weird stuff that we might not already know about. So I will bring on Luke in just a minute. But one other thing I wanted to say real quick is that, in part due to the success of my previous small meetups, like the meetup I did in Florida and the meetup I did in London, in each of those cases, not only was it really fun and I met cool people almost to a T, like there was not a single bad person really that I can remember meeting in either of these meetups. And in both cases, those people went on to do some types of collaborative things together in some way beyond, me, that had nothing to do with me. And I'm in part very inspired by the results of these previous meetups. And it's one reason why I'm now planning to do a big one in LA. So I've been talking about this a lot for the past few days. I really just tweeted it once a few days ago, just floated the idea, and it got a lot of traction. So this is kind of how I work when I float a hypothesis or I float a random idea and it gets a lot of traction. Then I'm like, okay, let's look into doing this seriously. Let's see if I can make it happen. And it looks like there's a lot of traction for this. It looks like it is going to happen. There's going to be a meetup in LA. But since I've already done 2 small meetups, now I feel a little bit more confident to be a little bit more ambitious. And now I haven't settled the plans exactly and fully quite yet, but I think there's going to be a book release party / live podcast show in LA will be one main feature of this. And then immediately after, I am looking to rent a huge Airbnb mansion. I'm not kidding either. I'm like, I have spreadsheets with like cost estimates and stuff like that. And I'm really thinking about if this is possible. And I will welcome into that Airbnb anyone from the internet who I know who wants to hang out with me and my audience and crew or whatever, my people. So this looks like it really might become a reality. It's not like finalized yet. I'm definitely going to be doing at least something in LA. So look out for that. But it looks like there's a decent possibility I'm actually going to rent an Airbnb mansion for 2 days on the weekend. So if you're interested in that, definitely hit me up on Twitter or email me or whatever. I'm in the middle of planning that. And that's in part to the success of my previous meetups one of which featured Luke Ford, who we have here with us today. So I'm going to bring Luke on now. Add him to the stream. Luke, can you hear me and see me okay?
I can hear you. I just want to make sure that you guys can hear me okay, because the audio settings for every site are different. So if I need to be louder or quieter, just let me know.
Yep. You sound perfect to me. And the live chat will definitely let us know if one of us is too loud or too soft. But I think we are perfect and good to go. How you doing, Luke?
Pretty good. In my personal life, moderate. My car battery died yesterday, and my fiance drove me to work, and then they got a flat tire on there. So it's a very expensive week so far, but it's everything else is going great. So what else can you ask for?
Yeah, damn, that sucks. Yeah, you know what they say, when it rains, it pours, right?
Yeah, unless you're in Australia.
Yeah, nice. That's some dark humor there. That's cool though. How are you doing? You're calling in from Florida, is that right?
Yeah. So I live in Jacksonville, so that's why the St. Augustine meetup was so convenient. It's just down the street. There's not much else going on in Jacksonville, so it was actually really interesting to see. That was just such a unique occurrence, and then from that, getting in touch with so many people who are doing stuff in Florida, which, as your newsletter says, like, signs of life usually in Florida is pretty low, but it kind of reminded me that, it's not like cool stuff doesn't only happen in Chicago or New York or LA. Like, you can find cool stuff wherever you are, or if cool stuff isn't happening, you can make it happen.
Hell yeah. Yeah, definitely. I mean, I've been so pleasantly surprised by the different types of people and occurrences that have kind of come in the wake of my, I don't know, travels or migration, let's call it, from academia to wherever I'm headed next. That, it's really kind of, it's really kind of altered my overarching kind of goals and game plan. Only slightly. Like, I'm still kind of focused on building an intellectual career. That's always kind of been the North Star. But now, seeing what types of connections and different types of creative collaborations and friendships and stuff can emerge just by someone like me, who's not even that famous, just hosting an event. And then people, like weird types of people who maybe in their own hometown, they can't find anyone like themselves, but in their county or in their region, there's maybe 30 people like themselves. And 30 people might not be that many out of several thousands, but it's more than enough to make interesting things happen, right?
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's sort of been my story. Like, I'm not affiliated with any academic institution for like 5 years. So all of my intellectual life is on the internet. So that's why I think a lot of people who, might criticize your project or something can do so sort of from a position where they can go, down the street on their campus and, talk with people who have similar ideas. But for people who are still interested in this stuff and have no other connection to it other than reading, but who does that, you need to talk to people somehow. So the internet has been a really big boon for me personally. And I think that especially not only people who are sort of, doing their own thing outside of academia, but even people within academia who might feel like they're on an island where everyone around them, even in their own department, is not interested in the stuff that they're interested in. You can find the internet's been really great for finding the one other person who's interested in, Duns Scotus, whatever
Yeah, definitely. Exactly. So that's why this has increasingly become like one kind of aspect of my larger mission, I think, is just finding ways to connect interesting, creative, kind of weird thinkers and makers who might feel isolated, connecting them with other people. So yeah, definitely. That's awesome, man. And so why don't you give us a quick rundown, just a quick summary, and then I'll kind of, I'll pry a little bit deeper into what you're up to, but give us a quick summary of what are the kind of internet subcultures that you're currently kind of plugged into.
Sure. Okay. Sure. So I'm sorry, I switched over to the live comments. So I wanted to see all the people who were disparaging me.
Yeah, it's best not to look at those while you're talking. They can
sure,
be
I'll turn that off.
Very distracting. Don't worry about them. They insult me all the time, like nonstop.
Sure. So I kind of found my footing as like someone who made jokes on the internet through Facebook, which is, I'm sure, again, to the live comments, is something that is not to be said out loud because it's probably not, cool to use Facebook or anything, but I'm an old person. So
How old are you?
I'm 26 years old, which
Okay. Yeah,
is
you're
not,
over the hills, boomer.
yeah, exactly. I'm basically a boomer. I shared, Joey Calabrese cartoons on on Facebook. But I sort of found myself there just because that was what I used the most, because the alternative at the time was either like 4chan or MySpace, which were they were like too based for me at the time. And I definitely sort of had this sort of, I would say like a millennial professionalism, like brainworm, where I needed sort of some idea of legitimacy in the things I was doing. So I always tried to do stuff like start my own projects or like have a blog or have a website and things like that. Mm-hmm. And all of those projects failed because, who gives a shit what I have to say? So I ended up just making jokes on Facebook and ended up getting into all the weird Facebook groups sort of through Zizek at first. That's just because I guess just randomly who the philosopher who kind of had the biggest footprint on Facebook at the time. This was in like maybe 2015, and then through the election, sort of weird Facebook or left book sort of blew up the election in the United States, and so I joined all those other groups, got in touch with the Sigmund Freud's Dank meme stash, again probably through my interest in Zizek initially, and then from there got into all the other groups, like I think was referenced on your show already, like dialectics posting for big others and negated absolutes. And then from there, all this, after that group had its own infighting and spin-offs, sort of the stuff that remained in the rubble was the stuff that, exists now, and all the projects have sort of sprung forth from.
Right. So how would you explain or summarize or characterize this ecology of left book?
Sure.
Groups? Yeah.
Sure. So there's actually a project on this through a group on Facebook called the Philosophers Meme. Well, that's a page, and then they have a bunch of subgroups because that was a thing that pages were really into for a while. They would like create, you go to the page and then go to community and it have groups. So they had a bunch of the Philosophers Meme subgroups, and one of their projects was to have, or one of the people who was sort of leading their project was to have an interactive directory of meme pages, academic meme pages. So you can find that at academic memes on academic-memes.gitlab.io. You can just like search academic memes, and it has a whole.
I think I've seen that.
Yeah, it has a whole sort of interactive web of different subjects and then different groups with within those subjects to link to their respective Facebook groups. And that sort of interested me because coming from my intellectual background, so like I studied philosophy in undergrad, and I also studied like art history. So that to make myself as lame as possible, just sort of the interest in the history of memes sort of as a continuation, or to apply art historical ideas to memes, which is really stupid, but that's just something that interested me as a side project. So this is an opportunity to contribute to that. And I would say the lay of the land is something like on Facebook, groups sort of reign king, which is, I think, different than Twitter. I think on Twitter or on other pages or on other platforms, you need to sort of have a unique individual presence, whereas on Facebook, the interactions or the content really comes from the interactions between people, which I think is something that appealed to me, again, because of my boomerism. The idea of shouting into a void doesn't appeal to me as much as like talking with someone. So I think a lot of things through Facebook, just the built-in features of being able to create, if you're in a group, you can create an event within that group and stuff like that. And so I really got involved with a lot of the events that those groups put on, whether it was like a book club, which is, again, really lame, or an event to do something like the interactive directory for meme pages, contributing to that over, Discord or a voice chat or whatever. So I think the ability of individuals on Facebook to sort of come together based on loose topics, whether that's however esoteric or inbred those topics may be. The ability to interact with people on an even playing field rather than everyone can comment on a post within a group, whereas I feel like on Twitter it's sort of like the main post and then the replies sort of get lost, especially nowadays on Twitter. You can't even really, it's hard to even track a conversation. A lot of replies are hidden, whether by the poster or not.
I have a question. Oh wait, hang on, I'm getting some feedback. Oh yeah, maybe turn your volume down, or you have headphones on. Shouldn't matter. Okay, I think we're good. Do you think that these left-wing Facebook groups that have proliferated, it seems, are from the outside, one could say that they look quite superficial, right? But would you say that real relationships form in these groups? Like, do people really bond in a way, and does it lead to kind of more substantial, productive results in any way that you know of?
Yeah, I would say so. I think that in a lot of ways, like my Facebook interactions have sort of dominated my Facebook feed. Like all the people that I interact with in real life, I basically only talk to over Messenger or text or whatever their preferred method of communication is. I don't really personally post statuses, and I don't really interact with other people's conventional statuses like using Facebook the way it's supposed to be or anything. So through these groups, it's sort of dominated my Facebook friends list, and a lot of the people who I met through that have given me opportunities, or that I've tried to create opportunities for other people to contribute to real material things. So through Sigmund Freud's Dank meme stash, Elliot used to run a journal called The Young Freudians, which I contributed to, and it had a couple issues. I think it's at least tabled temporarily as maybe he's not a young Freudian, he's just a regular Freudian now.
He's a boomer Freudian.
Yeah, boomer Freudian magazine, or that I think it's more so tabled because of his own personal life, and editing a journal is obviously a lot of work, and if it doesn't have the sort of numbers that you want or the rewards that you want, then obviously you're not going to keep doing it. And then recently, another offshoot of Sigmund Freud's Dank meme stash, a lot of the people from there are contributing to sort of a revival, a profane revival of the Acephal journal of George Bataille from the mid-century. So that's something that I contributed to as well. And, it seems to have a lot of promise. Like it has real issues, that you can buy online, which is a lot different than the Young Freudians magazine. And it seems like there's interest in from the people in there have connections to real publishers, not just like Blurb or Lulu.com or things that you can self-publish on. So that might be a potential real material thing that sprouts just from people making memes on Facebook.
Right. Do you ever meet in real life with people from your Facebook groups?
Well, again, I live in a boondock city in
right.
in the the as far south as you can get in the United States. So not many people live around here, at least from the Facebook sphere. And if a lot of people who live in Florida Florida's a big state. They live 5 hours away still. So I haven't really met anyone in person through my Facebook interactions. But I mean, I do have family like up north. So if I ever visit there, which has been a while because it's expensive and cold and I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
So if I ever go up there, I would imagine I'd be able to hit people up.
Right. But you've never tried that, like going to a city and being like, who in my groups are around here? Let's meet up.
No, I don't really travel, to be honest.
Nice.
So if I did, I'm sure I would. But if I travel, it's usually for like a Magic the Gathering tournament or something like that. So again, cement my coolness factor.
No, that's cool. I own it, man. I like that you own it. Now, traveling is for cosmopolitan, bottom feeders. That's what I think. Deleuze never traveled, so never traveling is, I think, the more based thing to do if you can handle it.
I have everything I need right here. So
nice. Yeah, it's a good attitude. So, okay, cool. So what do you think about these groups that, might not be obvious from the outside? Like, what is the kind of the easiest thing to get wrong when you look at this weird ecology of kind of silly seeming left-wing memes? Like, what, from an outside perspective, would you be least likely to understand about what's really going on there?
I think that for the most part, I think that people, again, because it's Facebook, for the most part, people use their like real names and identities. There are a lot of like fake accounts, but the Zuck is always cracking down on them. And if you say something, so someone can report you to go to Facebook jail or whatever. So it's a lot more, or on the surface, I think it's a lot more like a sort of surveillance or limitation of what you can say. Sort of the platform can cancel people, whereas I feel like the anonymity that Twitter provides, or the sort of more libertarian elements of a platform like Discord, where there's almost no moderation whatsoever. I think that the assumption on Facebook is that no like sort of subversive discussion or anything can take place, and I've definitely seen that not to be the case. Not that I'm pretty much like I don't really have that like crazy. I don't say things on the internet. I don't even think things or say things on the internet that would get me, put on an FBI watch list, other than saying that you're a member of a weird left book group, which I'm sure, my FBI agent is listening to this right now. But, I don't really say things like that, but there are definitely people who do. So I would say Facebook is more, based than you would imagine, just because I think the assumption is that because people use their real identities and people are always getting, quote unquote zucked, that you wouldn't see like really radical things on it. But there's some cringy shit there for sure.
So do you have a sense of how many of these different weird left book meme groups are there?
Well, according to this handy chart, no. I would say that it's definitely in like the dozens. I wouldn't say like, I don't think I'm a member of more than like a handful at this point, because most of them sort of take care of themselves. They sort of see themselves their own conclusion. But the ones that are active right now, I would say it's in probably like the dozens. There's always like a million offshoot groups, because people get banned from things and create their own, versions of them. But for the most part, it's sort of, I would say, less than 100 for sure.
And do you think that the distinctions between these groups, like when one breaks off to form a new one, and I'm talking specifically about the active ones, are these substantively significant ideological discrepancies, or is it just kind of somewhat random personal splits?
Well, the largest schism that I saw going from, when I first got into it, was in the dialectics posting group, and that one had a real sort of like both ideological and personal fallout between its members. And so from there, you had individuals who were, sort of rehashing the May 68 ideological lines of like Deleuze versus Baidu versus Marxism versus, like there were real sort of ideological differences between its members, and the Lacanians and Freudians as well. So there was sort of different camps headed up in part by someone named Peter, who headed a lot of the Baiduan Facebook meme pages, as much as those are a thing, and Elliot from Sigmund Freud's Dank meme stash, and then a couple of other actors from some other factions.
So you're saying that there was a kind of original big left book meme group that split off?
Yes. Well, the largest ones, which are of course the most normie ones, and that was the Political Aesthetics Escape Pod, which it was itself an offshoot of a group called Political Aesthetics, whose stated goal was to be like a forum for intellectual and political discourse across ideological lines. So it invited centrists and conservatives and right-wing people. I think if you were too radical of a right-winger, you wouldn't be allowed in, but basically anyone whose views would be accepted in the academy would be allowed to participate in that group, and then from there, it's that first schism I think is sort of like the start of Left Book, and that was really before I was involved in the sort of minute political discourse of Facebook. I was still sort of in more into philosophy than politics at the time. So that was something that happened a little before I was part of it, and then sort of just seeing those ley lines forming, and then being a part of the stuff that happened later.
And what was the name of that biggest one that started things off?
I think political aesthetics is the original, and that was sort of, there's groups on Facebook that you can find which are like, again, the most normie stuff, which are not, there's no discussion taking place in them at all, and these are groups that are just like the great problems of philosophy or something like that, which have like 500,000 members and people who don't use the platform correctly and share their multi-level marketing schemes, stuff like that. So those aren't any sort of intellectual community.
Yeah, I'm not counting those. Not counting those.
I think political aesthetics is like the originator, at least as far as any sort of traceable lineage. There might have been people, groups of 30 people talking about stuff in private chats and whatnot.
Sure. And how many members do you think political aesthetics had at its peak?
These are the groups that had like 50,000 plus members.
Okay. Right. And so you're saying that group split off primarily along the cleavage between
left and right.
What's that?
Of left and right.
Oh, of left and right was the main split. I see. Right. Because you had originally said that it was a kind of the insurrectionary Deleuze versus the more Marxist.
Yeah, that's dialectics posting for negated absolutes. That happened in like 2017 or early 2018.
Okay, so that's downstream of political aesthetics. I see. So political aesthetics broke into left and right, and then what was the biggest left group that split off from political aesthetics? Do you recall?
Political aesthetics escape pod.
Okay, that's right. Thank you I think you said that before. Okay, so interesting. And then that split presumably into this like huge ecology now.
Yes, and there are these are all of these things. People are gonna, if they're familiar with them, they're gonna say this has been dead for years. So this is all happened along many moons ago. But it splitting off sort of created its own meme where there are sort of groups that are just like escape pod of levels of escapism can you get, and it's like with this particular tendency, so there's like a Posadist escape pod and things like that. So
so these are mostly voluntary exits, is that right?
Yes, for the most part. I think that some of them did have sort of like either were banned, like removed from the group because the mods went mad with power, which happens at a certain frequency, or people were banned for like criticizing others, harassing on the internet.
And but you do think that it's largely ideological.
Yeah, for the most part, it's ideological. Again, at least in the groups that are like 50,000 members, it's hard to get too personal with with people's. There are certainly big names. One name, there's a couple names that come to mind who have like horrible takes that are memes in themselves, like that bees are settler colonial. It was a meme on Facebook for a while that some crazy Marxist said, anti-colonial Marxist said once. And so
okay, got it. Right. So what year was that political aesthetics was kind of the biggest game in town at its peak? Like, I'm trying to get a sense of when before the kind of fragmentation dynamics really kicked in.
This would have been around 2015.
Okay, so this was all very recent then.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think the Facebook groups didn't really blow up until then. Like before then, I think I was only members of groups that were like, my college's whatever group. People weren't members of groups that were 10,000 members, 5,000 members large.
Right. And is your sense that the political left book is growing, or is it just stable, or what?
I think for the most part, at least in the ecologies that I find myself a part of, it's pretty much played itself out. As far as the groups themselves or the platform itself, for the most part, pages still have their reach, and pages still post funny things because it's funny to look at images on the internet. But as far as like or as far as people, I think finding the kind of stuff that I was able to find, I don't know if those exist in the same way. All of the major groups like the Barrel or Philosophical Anti-Marginalization Union or whatever, those sorts of groups, which all sort of spun out of either a political side, or the Philosophers Meme is another one, like I mentioned before. That was a big page that a lot of these groups spun out of. Those have sort of become so insular that anyone even attempting to have real discourse is sort of shot down, which I guess it happens on Twitter as well. If you post a question in earnest, it's a way to have people troll you to no end. So the same thing.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's interesting. Okay, that was a very, very good review of the recent history of these things. Thank you for that. That's interesting. So have all of these groups been affected by changes in the Facebook algorithm? Because my understanding is that for organic groups, that is anything that's not paid advertising, the reach has been significantly decreased. Have you observed this, and has this been an issue for Facebook groups in political meme land?
Yes, I think groups are kind of, again, because of the function of Facebook wants you to join groups that are from pages, because obviously the page is incentivized to keep that group going. So like if you're in a group for Helix mattresses or whatever, whoever else supports podcasts, they want you to be a part of that group because the group is incentivized to keep posts going and engagement high. So a lot of the meme groups, a lot of the groups that are based on large meme pages still get traction, but even the large meme pages themselves, and I help admin a moderately sized meme page, and our reach has definitely decreased over time, and partially because of lack of interest in the mods and admins, but also just from even when we post something that's absolutely based and amazing, that it doesn't get the same traction. And then of course groups themselves had the Indonesian like mass reporting scandal that happened like a year or a year and a half ago, where a lot of groups were getting reported for things falsely, and so there was not only an actual organized effort to eliminate some Facebook, or to like at least censor some Facebook groups, but also to to cause sort of an extra or a disproportionate reaction, because obviously no matter how big this group was that was targeting Facebook groups, they could never get them all, but people sort of self-censored and made groups secret or private. People, the mods and admins were afraid of being doxxed, so they removed themselves from groups and things like that, and a lot of those groups never recovered from that point.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, that's so. All right. I mean, that was really good, man. That was a good tour de force. You really, I'm hearing some feedback. Are your headphones like plugged in?
Yeah, it's all plugged in. There's some weird stuff with the way I have my audio set up generally.
Okay.
Because it's through like a soundboard. So
okay.
if it like the headphones are getting the signal, the microphone and headphones are plugged into the same device.
Oh, gotcha. Easiest thing to do would just be mute your microphone when you're not talking if you feel like it.
Sure.
Whatever, that's all good. And so, yeah, that was really, really competent explanation and information-rich summary of what's going on in this interesting world. Is there any question I should be asking that I'm not asking? Are there aspects to it that you find really interesting that you want to riff on that maybe I'm not even thinking to ask about?
For the most part, I think your method of sociological survey is really useful. So I think the nature of the questions are pretty good. I guess there one thing would be like how other groups, or how the landscape or the ecology of Facebook groups or Facebook in general is more than it's more than just the political or philosophical posting. I think there might be some some interest there in your research, but I don't really have exposure to that. That was just something that I think seeing how these groups are different than more conventional Facebook groups would be interesting. I know that like I'm a member of like a lot of plant and animal identification groups, and so those are really bizarre and weird too, because it's like normies using the internet and doing crazy stuff. So I know there's always some fruitful research to do research on internet.
Would you say that the left book meme groups are very far to the left, or moderate left, or just basically all over the left, both radical and moderate?
Yeah, I would say it really runs the gamut. That's something that's interesting on Twitter. Maybe I've just like curated my feed to not like see things that I don't want to see. But for the most part, I would say that like especially when I first was a member or getting into a lot of these groups, there are views that like are totally like stupid that I would never like affiliate myself with, that I saw in a lot of, especially the larger groups, whether that's, like college tankies or, just like Elizabeth Warren voters or things like that. And then of course, the people who I'm friends with who, share really great things that I've, would have never been exposed to just even, in my own independent research. So all over the place. And you just have to, and that's the beauty of the internet is you don't have to see it if you don't want to see it. I guess that's also the danger of it.
Right. Right. Is there any meme trend going on right now that's super hot that maybe we don't even know about, or that I probably wouldn't understand if I saw it? What are the cool kids talking about right this moment?
I'm not like within like the circles that I'm in, that like a lot of the memes are so like just like ironic or making fun of memes in general that there's not really any thing that I could point to in particular. Sure. I know there's a push to create to bring back Big Chungus or whatever. But I did want to bring up a point of something that you retweeted, one of my tweets about like esoteric Catholic philosophy, and then it's like the Uncut Gems meme of like, and this is how I win.
That's been really popular lately, right?
That's the one that's really popular. But I wanted to bring up that because I tweeted that knowing that I would not get any likes or retweets. But this is a strategy. This is a real technical meme strategy that you at home can use. So whatever platform you have the most followers on, what you want to do is post on another platform, screenshot it, and then post it back to your original platform, because it will make it seem like that your post already has traction and you're stealing a popular post. And people will like that more. So I did that with that tweet. I just have a Twitter with like 100 followers on it, but I tweet stuff and then screenshot it and share it to my Facebook page with like 25,000 followers, and then it gets, takes off.
Interesting. So you're saying you post to the one that you have less followers on?
Yes, because Twitter screenshots are themselves a meme, so it seems like those get more traction than posts in the text, editor of Facebook.
Right. Okay, that's some insider meme knowledge, man. That's interesting. Yeah. Right. So, okay. Huh. But you were saying you knew that it wouldn't get any likes or retweets?
Yeah, on Twitter, because I mean, if your meme uses things like hashtags, then it's not going to be funny. And if you don't have a lot of followers on Twitter already, then you're not going to get that,
Sure.
No one's going to.
So the point was not to tweet it and then show that you're getting retweets and likes, and then that functions as like social proof in the Facebook group. But the opposite, kind of like you're showing that it bombed on Twitter.
No, I just cropped out my name and any interactions on the bottom of the tweet.
Okay, interesting. I wonder if the reverse would work. Like, I'm mostly on Twitter, and I personally just kind of dislike the experience of being on Facebook at all. Find it very distracting and chaotic and just kind of vulgar, personally. I mean, I can hardly say very much for myself at being very active on Twitter, but it's just a personal preference. But I wonder if the reverse would work, where if I posted to Facebook meme groups, maybe stuff that wouldn't necessarily play well in the meme group, but I could screenshot it and then tweet it.
Perhaps the thing I see on Twitter, like the meme pipeline, is like videos or like funny videos are like the highest echelon because they're the most difficult to produce. It's very easy to just like put an image macro and some text and things like that. But funny videos that are stolen from TikTok and then posted on Twitter probably get more views on Twitter than they do on their initial platform because yeah,
videos that are just stolen from TikTok and then posted to Twitter, like as if the person posting on Twitter created it.
Well, not, or just to get more reach, like, because I think I'm not, again, I'm a boomer. I don't even know how the TikTok interface works, but I imagine it's more like Snapchat or something like that, where unless you're at the absolute top echelon of influencer, you don't get a lot of views on your video. Like only people who follow you see the things, whereas on Twitter, the reach can be more inorganic.
You know what? To my understanding, it's actually the opposite. I think of all the social networks right now, TikTok is the one that is most based on just raw kind of consumer quality, which is based on metrics, and actually it's least weighted to follower counts. In other words, what they seem to do on TikTok is, and I've read this, I think also, is when you post a video to TikTok, they actually essentially their system is essentially showing it to a few different groups, and then the videos that perform best in those groups get boosted, and it actually has very little to do with how many current followers you have. And that's one of the reasons why I think TikTok is blowing up, because all of the other ones are it's hard to blow up on them. And of course, what everyone wants is where things are blowing up, where they can blow up, right? They want that possibility to go from low followers to tons of followers or lots of views. So in other words, like if you go on TikTok with no followers and you make a video that's like pretty funny or meets the criteria that TikTok users will watch to the end, that video can easily get like 10,000 or more views, even if you have no followers. So that's actually more so on TikTok than any other platform right now. And I think that's why TikTok is blowing up, actually.
Interesting. Yeah, like I said, I've never used it. I was just the closest thing that I would have used is like Snapchat, which I know like obviously it's designed to not like share your content, or like they just store it, I guess, or whatever. But
right,
only people who you send it to see it. So I figured it was more like that. I know like Vine had a similar like boom and bust, which
right.
probably will happen to TikTok, where it had this great algorithm and was allowing people to sort of like make all these deals and become influencers and whatever, and then they like sold out, which also a pro tip to any people who are memeing on the internet: sell out immediately. As soon as it's offered, take it. So I don't blame the Vine people, but I'm sure it'll happen to
have there been people who have kind of like blown up out of weird politics, philosophy, internet spaces that you know of that did sell out and did something?
Just you? No, I'm just kidding.
Have there been any cases of that? I can't think of any. Not
really. I think that it's sort of is just restricted by it. It's restricted. When you talk about philosophy and politics, one, you're alienating a large swath of people to begin with who just aren't interested in it, and then even within the people who are interested in it, you're probably alienating 2/3 of them also anyway. So
right.
You're really cutting your audience there.
Right. Okay, man. Well, this has been cool. This has been fun and very informative. Is there anything you wanted to share with people? You want to plug some of your current projects or what you're up to next?
Sure. So you can read the new Acephal journal on WordPress. If you search, I think, Acephal WordPress, it should come up.
There's a link in the description below.
Okay, then perfect. Click that. You should be good to read that if you're interested. I also have sort of similarly inspired by a lot of the stuff that I see you and other people who are independently becoming creators on the internet doing in my own field. Like I said, I like to play card games, so I'm making my own card game. You can join our mailing list because it's not actually out yet, at playconjure.com. It's a game that's similar to, Magic the Gathering or Ascension or Hearthstone. If you're interested in that stuff, that has absolutely no connection to philosophy or politics or memes or anything. You can just sign up to give me money at a later date, and I'd appreciate
All right, there you go. Gamers rise up.
Exactly.
I think I have a fair number of gamers in my audience, so yeah, they might be interested. And don't say that it's not related to philosophy, because if you're designing games, then necessarily your philosophy and your art historical sensibility is going to enter into the games that you design, right?
Yeah, and the story is roughly based on George Dumazel's 3-part distinction of power, but that's like, so.
Oh, that's cool. I feel like you should lead with that. That's an interesting selling point.
Yeah, every time I talk to people about it, they seem really interested. So no, I'm just kidding. They don't know who that is. So but yes, from reading about Deleuze and the becoming nomad and things like that, and the sorcerer, the magician emperor, and the warrior king, or whatever the other trifunctional hypothesis part is, that definitely influenced the structure of the story. So.
Oh, cool. Well, you're definitely underselling yourself now. Then you're like, this has nothing to do with my interest in philosophy, and then you're like telling all these interesting philosophical.
But it only has stuff to do because I am like the philosophy, like brain disease, has polluted my creativity so much that I can only think of these things in these.
That's cool, man. That's what creativity is all about. Good for you. Sounds cool, man. I'm not a gamer myself, so I'll have a look at it though. But I'm sure some people in my audience might want to check out your game, and there's a link to that in the description below here also.
Awesome.
All right, man. Thanks again. And hit me up if you ever want to talk about anything else. It's good to know you. And next time I'm in Florida, maybe I'll get to see you again.
All right. Thanks so much.
All right. Take it easy, Luke. Later.
See ya.
All right, folks. I hope you enjoyed that. Please do go ahead and subscribe to the Other Life podcast, wherever you get your podcasts, in case you missed some of this, or you just don't feel like sitting on YouTube all day. You can listen to all the talks that I have and more on the Other Life podcast. And you should be able to find that wherever you get your podcast. So go ahead. I'll give you a minute. Do that right now before you forget. Pull out your phone. Subscribe. And subscribe to my channel if you want to. Huge shout out to my patrons. Very grateful to my patrons. I try to always thank them and acknowledge them. I couldn't be doing everything I'm doing without my patrons. So yeah, just very grateful. Shout out to them. What else? If you want to join the Discord server, still have that running. Totally free. I think there's a link to that also in the description below. And yeah, that's about it. I'll tell you a little bit about upcoming live streams and podcasts. We've got some cool people coming up. Next week, I'm going to be talking with Akira. Akira is a interesting dude. He's a writer, and it seems to be a musician or music producer or both. Kind of jack of all trades. An interesting person I think he's kind of in the NRX kind of sphere. I don't know. I've been acquainted with him for a while, but I can honestly never really keep up with people, like what they actually are talking about or saying. That's why I do these podcasts in part, so I can actually have long sit downs with people and in that way get to know them and then plant who they are and what they think and their whole kind of shtick in my brain. But there are people who I've kind of been following for a long time just out of curiosity, or even have chatted with here and there on Twitter and beyond, who you just can't tell you really much about what they think or who they are. That's why I like doing these podcasts to figure it out. So I'll be talking, but he's productive. He's a really productive dude. He runs a music label where he puts out other artists also. I think it's called Love Crypt, if I recall. And so he's been out on Twitter for a long time, putting out a lot of stuff. So very, very interested to talk with him. Seems like a smart and, somewhat controversial person, perhaps to some degree. And so that should be interesting and fun. I'm going to be talking with the creator of the YouTube channel called Meme Analysis. That'll be coming up soon. I think that's either next week or the week after. And I got a few other cool guests in the hopper. So be on the lookout. As always, I'll have uploads at least every week. In fact, at the moment, I'm uploading videos every damn day. I did one a day for the past 3 days, and we got a few more scheduled into the next few days. And I'm going to try to keep that going as long as possible with the help of Ben Williamson. Shout out on Twitter, BDC Williamson. He's really helpful, and he's really game to make stuff with me. So we've been having a blast. And yeah, so look out for that. In fact, today, I think the video I dropped today was the best video I've yet posted. Maybe it's really good. I think you'll have to watch it. All right, I think that's all for now. I got to go do some shit. I love you all. Thanks for hanging out. I'll see you soon. Bye bye.